and, housing boom of like tract housing and became affluent.
Frisco had a plan, and they saw, the way things have grown in Dallas, everything, it's always been just kind of,
drive till you qualify.
Right. And, I think Frisco looked at Reno and said, well, you know what, it's coming, and let's have a plan.
For the growth.
Right. Mm-hmm. And so I remember I moved to Frisco in like 2003, and I remember at the time, they were building 6-lane roads in what seemed illogical places, right? And I'm like, what's going on?
Why do you need this? Yeah.
And then,
and now it's like worse driving in Frisco than it is in Dallas.
Right.
It's big.
Right.
But yeah, I think that whole idea is like creating, accepting that urban sprawl is what it is, and it's not something that's going to solve itself overnight. They capitalized on it in the best way that I think that you can, is to make it, develop it in an orderly fashion, focus on schools, which they have done an amazing job with their schools, and even then when I went there, I was the beneficiary of the Robin Hood system, because we were, poor to working class family, 2 ex-military parents who were working their way back to school. They had us very young, and like they're doing well now, but of course when we were younger, that wasn't necessarily the case. And they were able to parlay some of that growth into, speculating on housing and things like that. And in ways that were interesting, but just sort of what was interesting there is that I parlayed that into a fine arts education in a small suburban town, that it worked out for me in ways that it wouldn't otherwise have if I had, my husband grew up in Palestine, Texas. They didn't have an art program there the way that,
Palestine is a suburb with Rusk.
Yeah, exactly. So, those kinds of things, of what they were able to harness, have worked out really well for that community. And so, but it is interesting. A lot of my aesthetic, comes from looking at the world through magazines. And, I remember everything that we did in AP Art Studio, everything that I learned as an adolescent forming my identity was through magazines and television and really basic technology. And so I think like that has seeped its way into my work, is that, I was doing a scanner painting workshop at the Nasher, and one of my friends, who's also a lecturer at UT Dallas, Kristen Cochran, she used the word, she's like, it's so direct, it's so like crude, and it just is kind of like this alla prima painting process. And I was like, crude is the word that I really wanted to, it could seem to be pejorative, but for me it was like this fresh, like direct, rough in, like the process of blocking in. It was so related to imprimatura and alla prima painting and block in, and the very obvious sort of strokes of kind of constructing rough painting.
Going back to the conversation we had earlier, if we're trying to get away from the overwrought, having someone say that it's crude is like, oh, great.
It felt fresh and direct. Like, to me, it was like, yeah, exactly. Or finicky, or, when you try to see, when you look at a David painting, for me, I'm not even going to bother to make a brushstroke photographic anymore after I've seen that, because he did it. The death of Marat, and the whole story of, I'm going to digress onto David for a minute, because I take deep sighs when I think about his work. I love it. I think that he was an insane person. I think he was a sycophant to people in power and mad with propagandizing power. But what a painter. Oh my gosh. And his madness to me is also compelling. Right. It's like, of course the things that they did in the Reign of Terror were really, really bad and horrific. But yet it's this dark, interesting sort of thing. And his paintings were just the glowing, transcendent touch in his paintings. I'm like, okay, this totally betrays who this person was as a human being, to see them. And of course, the Louvre agrees, and now he's in art history in that way. But
well, the best propaganda is very beautiful.
Yeah, it really is. It creates this idea of and even now it's become it's subterfuge in things like TED Talks now of like the reputation economy. I was listening to someone and I get my antenna go up when people start proclaiming these utopian possibilities for the reputation economy is going to be more important than cash. But really what it is we're surveilling each other and the reputation economy.
It can all be undermined by the algorithms.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. So, but I mean, the Islamic Republic, their reputation economy is fear, right? So you have to, watching out for the overselling, of things is like my antenna go wheel up, the old SUVs where the antenna would come up. I just start wheeling up. But yeah, I totally got off on a tangent, but that kind of utopian ideal is something that's interesting, and the utopian ideal of the internet and Facebook and all of these technologies is like, for me, the scanner paintings were interesting because I'm engaging with something that most people are frustratedly using as part of trying to scan a document and send it over. It's got to go now, that frustrated or banal way that we engage with these everyday technologies was something that I wanted to subvert in a way that was part of what I perceive to be the joy of painting,
Right.
So it's
you touched on something there that I've been thinking about recently, and I think they refer to them as AGFA now: Apple, Google, Facebook, Amazon.
Yeah,
the big four, right? And how we everybody talks about the utopian possibilities of the internet and e-commerce and everything. But when you go to some Facebook's been kind of dragged through the mud in the last couple of weeks for sharing and snooping and things. But one of the more troubling things is they're regardless of what Zuckerberg says
in Congress or whatever,
in an interview on Freakonomics Radio or whatever. Their goal is not for you to become more connected or more enlightened.
Right.
Their goal, engineers, the 40, 50,000 engineers that are working for Facebook are working to keep you
on the platform
as long as you can. So
that they can sell you to advertisers.
Right. So they're trying to feed your addiction of whatever, whatever
memes, news,
right,
whatever,
earwig or that, these rabbit trail wow, how did I go down this rabbit trail for 3 hours of looking at these, kitten videos or whatever it is? It's because, they have enough data on what you've clicked on that they know exactly what to feed
you next.
And so it's it's antithetical. I mean, you're not, if you spend your time on that platform, you're not, I don't know. It sounds so judgy.
Yeah.
It really does.
It's fine.
But you're
in the trust tree.
Right. You're not going to get any further along. I mean, you're going to be, satiated in some other way, but it is really a distraction. And, the whole notion of, connectivity and building community, I really don't think that's what's happening.
Well, I agree with you. I think that the artwork that comes to mind that is really relevant to this, that It's really a black hat video. It's an early video work. I do not care so much for Richard Serra. I'm just throwing all my controversial things out there. I know he's well loved,
he's
but
a little abrasive.
Yeah, I don't care for him, but there is one work that he is in my canon because of this work, and it's a video work. Mm-hmm. There's the video works of him throwing iron, lead.
Yeah. Of course, it has to be toxic.
Yeah, right? Which is, perfect. It's the perfect persona for him. But there is a work that is so unbelievably good, and it's called Television Delivers an Audience. And you can take, he talks about the new media state, mm-hmm. And he's referring to broadcast television, right. But it is 100% on point for the new media state today, right. Which it talks about how inherently undemocratic it is and how it leads to I won't even say the F word, but how it leads to things that aren't good for us that we didn't foresee. And so again, goes back to the artist wants to control it. Zuckerberg wants to control Facebook, his baby, his creation. Right. Too late. You cannot. You can't unring the bell. You can't gather that. It's like the game. Once a secret's been told to 10 people, you can't get that secret back. Right. So it's out there, and so television delivers an audience, and it talks. It takes you logically step by step, but it looks like scrolling credits. It's just it's text with sort of music scrolling across like the end of broadcast on like public, back in the day whenever Chris Burden and Richard Serra were like buying time on public access television and doing these projects, which was like a whole thing. But it's the one Richard Serra work that I actually like, and it's amazing. And it's so relevant to now. And again, I feel like my work is a little bit deconstructive, because I think you do have to try to make sense of some of these. You have to make limitations on them, question them, trouble them. But what you said about the distraction of all of it is that it was possible that was true of books in a library. Right. But it wasn't as possible and as accessible at all times. Like you had to go to the library and get lost, and being a bookworm was a thing. And maybe you go become a monk in a monastery and spend your whole life reading and singing prayers or whatever. But that's not true now. I think it's Confucius that was basically saying that the pursuit of knowledge is actually folly. Because it is so endless and you die. Right. And because you have limited time and a limited brain and infinite information that, pursuing that. So you do have to kind of, balance that. And I am as far pro education as I could possibly think myself to be, but I do think that there's some wisdom to that is that enjoying your life, having a happy life is not overrated. Right.
Yeah, one of the things you were saying about the tactile nature of the books, I read recently that there's a big controversy down at UT that their visual arts library, they're like trying to reutilize the space. They're moving they're like getting rid of hard copies and like moving things to digital resources, and like, oh well, if you need it, you can look for it, you can make an appointment for whatever hasn't been scanned, make an appointment to go see it off-site or whatever.
Like at the special
everything's going to be
collection.
digital, right? And the thing is, there's something.
Scale. You can't just uniformly make everything the scale of the screen.
Well, the thing, like, I love the internet, and I love Google, and I love being able to search, but the serendipity of browsing, you just can't be replaced. There's the tactile nature of going in and just touching, looking.
I was going to say the textures of paper, because, if you only ever experience something through your personal device, this is limited in terms of the sensations, the interactions, the particularity of this screen and how it's backlit is different. You know, all it takes is to go into a display room to understand that screen calibration is different and off and a little bit, you know, wonky, to understand that each projection, though it's supposed to be, you know, it's like the Platonic ideal. You have the design for this monitor, and then you have the physical manifestation of the thing.